Alrighty, thank you everybody for taking the time to join today. My name is Austin Kelly. I'm one of the account managers here on the Big Green IT team. So thanks again for joining. And this is a follow-up sort of ask me anything Q&A session that we decided to host because we got a lot of great questions during our last webinar, modernize your phone system with Microsoft Teams Phone. So thanks for joining today. We are joined by Wade Walker, our Director of Cloud Services, and another one of our account managers, Lindsay Cowan, and also special guest, Joe Labella. He's going to be answering majority of the questions regarding any Yealink devices. He's sort of our resident expert. So you'll be hearing from a few different people. I'll be doing the moderating. But if you do have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat, and we will get to those as soon as we can. And also in the background, Carrie LaRue and Chuck Ray, who you might have seen some communication from, they're also here in attendance as well. So with that, like I said, thanks for joining. If you have any questions regarding Teams Phone, feel free to post those in the chat and we'll get to them as needed.
Austin, hey, Wade here. I got one sent to me.
Just a quick question that, we've constantly
Austin, I'm having some audio issues hearing you.
Yeah, same here. All right, Lindsay, I'll start moderating. This is Wade here. And then until Austin can get back in, if it's his or if it's, I'm seeing some other people are noticing some audio issues as well. So it could be a platform issue. But Lindsay, I had one question come in directly to me.
Yeah, I'm having issues.
Okay, then I'll moderate here. And then Lindsay, let me know if you can't hear me. Can you do call recordings in Teams Phone?
That's some audio as well. It keeps going in and out. So
no worries. So Wade, did you want me to go ahead and address that question?
Yeah, if you can answer the question about doing recordings in Teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do have the option to enable call recording under calling policies within tabs or within Teams, my apologies. And then you can review those on the back end. Now, if we're talking about call recording capabilities like live barge, I know that's not necessarily call recording, but additional call center functionalities may or may not be available natively, but yes, call recording specifically is available.
Perfect. Next question we have is, and Joe, we might need your input on this one as well. Can I use non-Teams phones for my Teams phone system?
Technically, yes. There is a list of supported phones that are not certified. And I say that because Microsoft has what they call like a soft gateway. It's almost like a licensing gateway that you would enable on, say, a Cisco phone. You could allow that phone through that soft gateway to register to a Teams voice system, but without the certification, you're really going to have a very basic layout on the phone. So that's why not only Microsoft, but also the manufacturers recommend a certified device because you'll get more integration to it, calendar integration, contacts, click-to-call type of setups, whereas a non-certified phone would just be showing up as a device, so to speak, on a Teams voice platform. So it is a two-part answer, unfortunately. So in the long and short, yes, you can, as long as it's supported. I would highly recommend going with a certified phone for a lot of reasons. The biggest one is the back-end integration. I just think there's going to be a lot more that you'll get out of the device, especially for the cost of the phones, as well as, just get the overall user experience.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks, Joe. And then we did also get a follow-up question to that. So does Teams support SIP devices like intercoms, for instance? Great question, by the way, Steve.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I know that there are some manufacturers out there that can integrate with Teams that offer, maybe some IP paging or intercom specific type of products. Now, if you wanted to try to do like an intercom type of call using a Yealink device, I would need to verify that. I want to say yes, because it probably is a setting that can be enabled through the Teams voice client, but at the same time, I don't know if it's a dial code that you would touch to allow for it to become an intercom type of call, or you have to call, maybe a group of extensions, to try to make that intercom. But I can definitely write that down and see if I can get an answer for you.
Yeah,
And then we have set up, Steve, something similar for intercoms, for like a PA system for one of our clients, and we did an AT device, an AT switching device. I forget the details on it. I think we use Algo software. I forget exactly all the details, but our engineering team has that, where we help set up intercoms for a restaurant type customer of ours that has PA paging in their facility where they do cooking and things like that. So we can definitely have a further discussions on that. We're integrating some, what do you call standard devices, so to speak, into a paging intercom type scenario.
Perfect. And we have a question from David. David, I saw you have a couple questions, so we'll start with the first one. But if an employee is working remote at home, can you bring home a desk phone handset and get functionality like you do inside the office? Or Wade, would you mind just kind of explaining what the user experience could look like for remote employees?
Absolutely. The team certified phones, like Joe was mentioning, work anywhere. So whether you're in the office, so to speak, on your network, or you're remote, is moot, because Teams is an HTML5 service, and using your phone works anywhere. For example, Lindsay and I, Lindsay's in the Phoenix area, I'm in the San Diego area. We've both been using Yealink phones for a while. I used to have an MP56 that would connect by Wi-Fi to my home Wi-Fi, and it had all the same features as if I was in one of our offices in San Diego or LA or Sacramento, because it is connecting via HTML5 to the Office 365 service. And because it's Wi-Fi compatible, I had no cables plugged into it other than power. I've since moved to a WH67, which is basically a PC soft phone, whatever it's called. It plugs into the USB port on my Surface laptop, and it's a great headset. It's decked instead of Bluetooth, so I have 200 feet range, so I can walk to outside of my house and around my house. And you get all the same features you would if the phone was in the office. These phones are basically Android devices with a pared down Teams client. It doesn't have chat on it, but it has all the other Teams voice features. Joe, anything you want to add to this, since you are the expert on these devices?
Yeah, no, you brought up a really great point about the DECT technology. So depending on, the model, like you had mentioned, some of the higher end models have Bluetooth connection. So that makes life a lot easier for you if you're using a lot of soft phone applications such as Teams app for your calls. What that would do is just allow you to pair the unit to the laptop, hypothetically, via Bluetooth, but you get the much more robust range out of DECT, roughly, I think 50 meters, which is about almost 300 feet indoors, and I think outdoors it's about 300 meters from the base station. So the other thing that I love about DECT technology is you can have these devices within a very close proximity of one another without any kind of frequency overlap. Bluetooth is a little different. Sometimes I've got a Bluetooth headset connected to my cell phone. My cell phone's in my pocket, a Bluetooth headset, over my ear. And every now and then, if I'm walking or exercising somewhere that I'm in proximity to a lot of other Bluetooth devices, I do get a lot of frequency issues. So DECT has definitely done a lot better of a job kind of separating all that. So from an office environment, even at home, where there's multiple people working from home now and you're in a close proximity, DECT technology definitely separates those calls a lot better. So I think it's definitely a nicer technology to build into these devices. But if you don't have Bluetooth, the devices also come with 2 USB ports for wired connection. You can have 2 different devices set up at all times, whether it's a hard phone like a desk phone, or you want to hardwire into a laptop or PC for soft phone integration. So it makes life a lot easier not having to worry about network drops or power adapters in one spot for your headset there.
The biggest caveat I have for this, David, and it dovetails to your next question, and then Fritz will get to your questions afterwards, is that when people are working home, we have to remember they're using consumer devices, myself included. Back in 2020, end of 2020, I had a son graduate from college, and he was taking classes here. Then he got a job. I had another son in college taking his classes here because of the pandemic. Their girlfriends would be over, and everybody was using my Wi-Fi, and I was having a lot of connectivity issues, and I wasn't sure what it was. We did some network troubleshooting at my house, and it was my typical ISP Wi-Fi gateway was just getting slammed. So I went out and bought, one of those mesh network things. I bought a Netgear Orbi, changed everything over as soon as I put it in. So there can be some challenges with the remote worker in that he or she is using consumer grade stuff, for lack of a better technical term. And if they're having connectivity issues, 9 times out of 10, it isn't the Teams device, it isn't Teams, and those things. If there were, you'd see the messages from Microsoft, there's a service impairment. 9 times out of 10, it's the consumer grade device, be it the Apple AirBuds, be it the my Wi-Fi ISP router. And we found out what the main root cause was. My garage door is on my Wi-Fi. And every time somebody opened the garage door, it really screwed up my Wi-Fi network. So that's just something to think about. And then your question about what are the pain points for firms that switch from on-prem phone system to Teams phone, that's just one of them. The endpoints, the better the endpoint, the better the experience. And if they are at homes and stuff, just I joke that my house has become a co-working space because I have so many people living here and working here that I now have the problems of a CEO of a co-working spot. Lindsay, do you want to jump in and answer some other questions for David on the high-level things for firms switching from an on-premise phone system to Teams phone?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that clients find difficulty in with the transition process is just understanding. So with the legacy POTS and on-prem phone system, you're dealing specifically with lines of service. And when we're thinking of voice over IP and specifically Microsoft Teams, it's user-based. So a user can access their phone system from a device in addition to their desktop, in addition to mobile application. You don't need separate lines of service for all of those devices to ring at one time. Now, there is some device-based licensing if we're talking about conference room phones, but that's just a big difference we see. The other thing to keep in mind as well is this is voice over IP. So the networking is all done over the internet. So internet connectivity is very important. So we've worked with clients who have replaced their phone system and prefer to use mobile application only. And of course, when there are users who are in the field and they don't have phone connectivity and no Wi-Fi, there are some quality issues which can be expected. So just want to be transparent about the internet being the base and foundation of the system overall. So making sure that's important. And then, Joe, I did want to direct a couple more questions over your way. It's two-part here. Of course, there are a variety of different Yealink desk phones. We had a question in regards to hoteling or desk sharing. So having the ability for any employee to walk in the office and log into a phone, log out the next day and have some other user use the same device. And also a question about the number of programmed buttons. We had a question about if it's easy to search for a user to forward a call. Can you forward to someone's voicemail directly? I think the buttons piece would be beneficial to address, and then I can address the second part of that.
Yeah, sure thing. So, outside of your standard SIP-based phones that will have either physical buttons for, busy lamp field, internal extension, or, maybe a specific, preset for forwarding calls. The Teams-enabled phones are really based more on the licensing that the audio system has. So if you have a 20-seat system, that's going to be your capacity that the phone can handle. Technically, each phone comes with just one account. And so in order to locate all of your other contacts, that's why using a certified device gives you the better experience, because you can load all of your contacts, both internal or any of them that you've saved that are outside your organization. So from the MP54, MP56, or MP58, the 54 is the smaller of the three. And by smaller, I mean the screen itself. It's just a smaller, I think it's 4-inch touchscreen option. And I'm looking at a picture right now. It shows, your phone book, voicemail, the phone to actually make a call, and then a conferencing aspect. But when you click on contacts, all of your contacts will show up that way. The 56 and 58 also have the ability to integrate with a expansion module. That expansion module can have predetermined contacts preset, so that way if you did want to do a quick transfer, you put a call on hold, you click the button on the expansion module to send it to that proper extension, and then it releases the call to the location. Now the MP54, it does not have the ability for sidecar, so you are regulated a little bit more to kind of searching through your contacts. But again, if it's just internal and you only have a small amount, all of them should really show up in an alphabetical perspective on that sidecar, or the touchscreen there. And then from there, you can transfer your call, you can swap calls, do the basic functions. But again, to answer it from the beginning, there aren't physical buttons for BLFs or extensions like SIP-based phones have. These are more regulated to what your Teams account kind of brings forward.
Perfect. And, the nice thing, again, you aren't technically locked to a physical device. So a lot of our clients will use soft phone capabilities. So within the Teams application itself, you can actually just type in any user's name, click them, forward a call, give them a call directly. So just because a specific device might not have that capability doesn't mean that the Teams interface itself does not.
Perfect, thank you. And I put some of this information also in the reply here with the links and the sidecar information. So thank you for that. Did we get to everything else for Fritz? I think so. Perfect. All right. Todd asked about some DABA extension with some of the format. That's something we could definitely follow up after the webinar. It's a little more for our support team to look at. Let's see. Virgil asked a question: can I make and receive calls from my workstation? Lindsay, I think you just sort of hit on that. You want to hit on that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, I'll actually just kind of explain my environment. So much like Wade, I have the Yealink WH67 headset. I have my desk computer workstation. I also have my mobile device. So if anyone was to give me a call, those devices, I have it set up so all of those devices would ring. So I have a lot of flexibility in terms of how I want to answer and receive calls. You can, of course, configure that so it goes to a specific device, or you can, log out of the voice portion on the cell phone, so it only rings the computer. But a lot of our clients will use the soft phone capabilities within the desktop application and use a headset as well. So absolutely, great question.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then Trish asked about 6 locations can all be on the same system and new phones for all of them. And thanks for answering that. Lindsay, you want to just elaborate any more on that, or?
Yeah, so Trish had mentioned that they have 6 locations. She was wondering if they could all be on the system, and absolutely. Most clients we work with have multiple locations, so you don't need to think of Teams Voice as having any boundaries, which makes it really nice and really flexible. So the short answer to multiple locations is yes, they'll all be on the same system. Trish, I know you also had a question specifically to your devices, and Wade had sent a message via chat that shows compatible SIP devices, but I'll send that to you directly as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Anessa asks about, do you have a suggestion for a texting solution? And I'm replying to your message right now. Anessa, I hope I'm saying it right. Yes, we do. We partner with NewWave for texting, and that way you can do texting within Teams. We use it internally. It works great. So let's schedule some time for us to discuss after this call, and then we can show it to you, and then talk more about it and see if it's a good fit for your organization. Did I miss any questions, Lindsay? I'm just going from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Christopher, you asked about Teams Phone and Azure VDI. We use that internally. We have both Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 at Big Green IT. I've used the Teams Phone in Azure Virtual Desktop. I can't remember if I use it in Windows 365. And we have multiple clients that are using Teams Phone in Azure Virtual Desktop. And so it works. There are some limitations. I posted that in the reply, but I was actually surprised. It really works, and it works well. And I've used it and called people, and we started talking. Then I asked them, hey, do you realize that I'm on a VDI environment? It's not really noticeable. You can't do everything. That's the list of limitations is there, but Microsoft's put a lot of work to make sure that Teams, and it's called redirection, that Teams redirection works well in that environment. Lindsay, anything else to add with Teams and VDI?
No, I think you covered it there. We did get another question from Andrew, just asking us to clarify the name of the third-party provider we use for integrated text. So I'm putting that back in chat right now. So as we've mentioned previously, SMS as it stands today is not natively available through Teams. So we work with some third-party providers that have call center solutions, SMS solutions. NewWave is one that we have a lot of success with. So I just put a link to their website on there so you can get a better idea. But typically what happens if you're interested in having additional functionality, we would work with you on scheduling time with them to define your exact needs, whether that just be SMS or if it is, you know, manager functionality, call center functionality. And so we'd all work together on defining the specific needs through NewWave and through Microsoft.
Perfect. Next, we've got Trish asking, her office uses VTech. Is that one compatible? Trish, I don't see it on the list here. I'll put the link here in the reply to you. You know, even though it's not on the list here, sometimes when we contact the vendor, if you contact VTech, they might have an answer for you as to where it could be compatible, but it's not on the compatible list, and I'll put that link. In the reply, Todd Anderson asks about home. I found the rest upgrading users to a Nighthawk AC 2300 router. Yeah, Nighthawk's great. Netgear, Orbi, whatever it is, having a little bit more robust Wi-Fi network is needed if you've got a whole bunch of devices at your house. And these days we've got our doorbell on. People have doorbells and cameras and refrigerators and stuff. And so when you start getting to that, you might need a more robust Wi-Fi solution. The next question from Todd is, I have users making and receiving calls from desktop, laptop, cell phone with Teams or forwarding calls to cell phones. Yeah, so that's the same thing. That's kind of related to that Nighthawk question. Good. Next question. How long does it take to set up Teams phone the very first time? Lindsay, you want to jump into that one?
Yeah, great question. So it really does just depend on the complexity of your call flow, setup needs, and the amount of users you have, if you have any specific call groups. The configuration process really doesn't take much time at all. Sometimes the longest part of the process is honestly the number porting process, which is essentially moving your existing numbers to Microsoft service. When you're ready to make the transition, we have you complete an LOA, or a letter of authorization, which is then submitted to Microsoft. From there, moving those numbers is completely in their hands. So it could, and I'd say could, take it with a grain of salt, take 1 to 3 weeks. Most recently, we've seen it take about a week or so. So that could take the longest. Big Green IT, we do take care of a lot of that configuration with our professional services. So we'll walk through with you, again, your specific setup needs. We'll do a lot of testing and then assist with the go live process as well. So we can take a lot of that heavy lifting off your plate.
Perfect. Does Teams have an auto attendant?
Yes, it does. And I don't believe there's actually any limit to the number of auto attendants that you have. So for example, if you have multiple locations, you have a main number for each location. Each of those can have their own independent auto attendant, which is fantastic. So of course, you can put in a variety of options, have that routed to specific user, specific call groups, have it go directly to a voicemail box. So lots of customization available. And again, short answer, yes, there are auto attendants.
Perfect. Virgil has a good question related to the number porting, Lindsay. While waiting for Microsoft to accept the numbers to the LOA, does that mean the phone number will not be operational until Microsoft accepts them or does the LOA transfer?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Virgil. So no, you'll still be able to use your existing numbers with your existing service if you choose to do so. But what we do with a lot of customers is we'll take temporary Microsoft numbers that are associated with each user, and we'll take your existing numbers, set them to forward to the temporary Microsoft numbers so you can use the Teams service immediately. And then once the number porting is completed, everything will auto assign, which makes it nice and easy.
Perfect. I'm answering this question as well. All right. I love these questions that I always forget to ask because these are great questions that I just overlook. How is Teams phone system administered?
So Wade, since you are a guru at the admin center, do you want to touch base on that a little bit?
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, it is literally in the Teams admin center. So if you're familiar with your Microsoft 365 admin center, there is a Teams admin center. You can assign permissions and roles, so some people can have permissions to it, others can't. And just like the other admin centers, Exchange Online, security, compliance, etc., it's in there, and dedicated Teams admin center where you can administer Teams, channels, chat, meetings, policies, and there's a whole section on, or multiple sections on phone. There's wizards or wizard type things for porting the numbers over, doing the whole LOA process, creating the auto attendant, assigning phone numbers to the auto attendant, creating call routing and queues, having people assigned to the queues and assigned to auto attendants, hunt groups, round robin or all at once, or skill-based routing and things like that. So it's all in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center under Teams Admin. And you control it just like you control access to any other Microsoft 365 service or resource. Todd has a question about porting numbers for phone system. Change is the longest step. It always has been. If you've done telco for a long time, and I've been doing it since the 90s, the whole number porting LOA process is a pain. Setting up takes a long time.
Todd also suggests finishing with a well-deserved 18-year-old scotch.
Yes.
So I love that. I don't think our team currently does that today, but it might need to be something we adopt.
Well, they are Whistle Pig fans and Bullet Bourbon fans, so it might not be scotch, but it's a really good bourbon. So yes, it is definitely well-deserved what we're doing with the LOA process. For what it's worth, Microsoft has really improved the LOA process in the past few years. No surprise, 2020, so many people move their phone system to Teams. We have a number of clients that are like considered like multi-store franchises, think restaurants and things like that. Almost every single restaurant has a PBX in it and a voicemail system in it. Restaurants weren't being used, calls weren't being answered, so a lot of people moved their phone systems into Teams. Number porting was painful back in 2020 because everybody was doing it, and the process with Microsoft wasn't as streamlined as it is now. So our number porting department tells us that porting numbers is so much better than 2 years ago and is much quicker. That being said, Todd's right, it's a pain, and you deserve some good the scotch afterwards.
And so, Todd, I know it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience with Teams, and we, of course, want to keep this very conversational. I know you did have a question about voicemails for calling queues. So in that scenario, we'd suggest setting up a shared mailbox. So those, you typically set voicemails to go to a primary inbox. So we'd suggest setting up a shared mailbox for all users in that group to access the voicemails. But I'd love to unmute you, and would you mind sharing with the broader group just your experience with Teams Voice thus far, since it sounds like you've already done some work with it? I've gone ahead and unmuted you.
Okay, yeah, I've recently set up Teams and set up the queues and set up the auto attendant and played with settings, and I'm down to a handful of things of where's the voicemail going in queues and trying to get dial by extension, dial by name works beautifully, calling queue dial by dialing through those. It's simple, it's easy to administer. I did things like I do not set 0 to dial for operator because people will hit that almost immediately. So I do something like 7 gets you to an operator. Because as soon as it comes on, they just hit 0, and they're like, you just defeated the entire thing I spent all day setting up. Bury that down someplace where they have to wait for it.
That's a really great tip.
Don't even make it 9 because that's usually the last one. So that's another thing you guess at. So yeah, stick a middle number in there for an operator.
That's great advice.
So what's that?
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, what phone system did you move away from to Teams?
We are moving away from a Toshiba Strata 2000 system. So this is going straight to Voip.
Perfect.
We're just bypassing it. And it is dying. It is a system that when somebody wants to work on it, they have to use the Windows 7 laptop I have control of. That has the only software to access the system. Nobody can even get the software to install it on another computer.
I administered Toshibas for a long time. I know exactly the pain you're going through.
Yeah, when you're like trying to fix something, they can't remote into it.
Nope.
They got to physically be here. I set up the laptop and say go.
And you can only find refurbished parts, and they're a pain in the
yes. I mean, it works, but you're like, if this laptop dies, I can't even administer it. And I'm already using an external keyboard because the keyboard in the laptop is dying.
You might have to virtualize that Windows 7 and put it onto some of the system.
I can't do anything with this thing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're making the leaps, and we're basically at this point we're just going completely soft phone. We're not even going with a hard phone at all. We might add some hard phones.
That's a good point that Todd brings up, and I'll mention this for the entire audience. I'd say, and Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, you as well, I'd say for our clients, maybe 15 to 30% of their users end up getting phones. A lot of them just use soft phones on their laptop or mobile phone. Lindsay, Joe, does that sound about right? Is it a little bit higher than that?
So I'd say
I think that's about right.
yeah,
Okay.
I'd agree as well. And it does just depend on the business needs. So for example, when we work with a lot of medical centers, physical devices are more necessary. But a lot of small businesses we work with, they appreciate the soft phone capabilities that are available, and don't want to put as much of an investment in the hardware. So it's really flexible, but those stats are about right.
Okay.
And some of it is just personal choice. My
Right.
CTO, who is in his early 30s, well, he hardly uses a phone anyway. He doesn't want a physical phone.
Right.
I'm 60. I like a physical phone when I want to make a phone call. I don't
Yeah.
want my computer ringing at me.
And then, Joe, we do see a lot of people then get, like for the operator receptionist, still getting a phone with the EXP50 sidecar. So you see that too in your client base, selling out these phones with sidecars for like operators, receptionists, right?
Yeah, a ton. And it's funny because it's almost in some cases gotten to a point where some people will have both, a physical phone, and then they'll also have remote access using maybe like a soft phone app more than anything. So they've got both features, and they do tend to tell me, from feedback is it's almost like an insurance policy that you always have a physical phone on your desk. You don't necessarily use it all the time, but when you need to, at least you can just quick pick it up, make your call, do what you need to do, and go back, with your day. So we do still see a quite large number of people that want to have something physical. Maybe it's a lower end model, but at the same time, it is something that we're seeing on the desks more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
like those. The sidecars work really well.
Yeah, and Todd, thank you again for all of your feedback. Wade, we have a question from Virgil again. He says, I work remotely from home. Can I still receive calls on my cell phone in Teams?
And that was for me, Lindsay?
Yes.
Yeah, and the answer is yes. So you can still, so your Teams app is going to have a phone number assigned to it, and whoever you log into in the Teams app gets that phone number assigned to them. So if somebody else logged in on your phone, it'd be their phone number. But yeah, you get the Teams app on your phone. Phone numbers ring to that, and then like on my iPhone, I've got my native iPhone app, which has a different phone number, and so my personal calls ring on my iPhone app, and then my business calls ring on my Teams app. And then like Lindsay mentioned, there'll be times when you can have like your phone ringing on your iPhone and your computer at the same time, because the call comes into both of them, and you can choose which device to answer the call on. You can also transfer the call from one device to another. So if I'm in a conference and I'm on Teams, or I'm on a phone call on Teams, then I've got to go drive. Hey, we're finally driving to clients again. Woohoo! But go drive to a client discussion or lunch or somewhere else. I can then transfer that call from my laptop to my iPhone, and then continue that call when I'm driving or being remote, so to speak. So yeah, you can definitely get the calls on these devices and still get your personal calls on your other phone app or apps. If you've got other personal phone numbers besides just one that comes with your device, you might have one from Google Wave or other stuff like that. So yeah, you can definitely have that happen.
Perfect. And so, Joe, I'm going to direct this one towards you. We have a lot of clients who are interested in Teams that have some unique meeting room setup needs. What does Yealink have to offer in terms of meeting rooms and conference room devices?
Yeah, so there really is a very large variety of room sizes that can be covered. As of right now, Yealink also has the only multi-camera solution that I'm aware of in the video market space that integrates with Teams. So you really can scale this as small as personal use, huddle room type of setups, all the way up to what I call like the accordion wall style rooms, where a room can be split apart by one of those electric doors, and then you have two rooms, and then you can open it up to make one larger room. So while Yealink has, maybe a good majority of the products that would go into a large room, they also have back-end configuration with a lot of higher-end AV, like strictly AV product manufacturers, like companies like Biamp and Shure, QSC. These are names that either you're walking into and there's already existing equipment in these large rooms, and just knowing that the customer has the peace of mind of not having to rip every single thing out, and they can integrate some of the Yealink products in with those existing pieces of hardware that Yealink doesn't manufacture, can also, put together a solution, maybe from a budget perspective, or if you want to upgrade cameras, add some peripherals, but also keep that existing equipment. So really any size room, there's various numbers of equipment that we could look at. It really depends on, room layout, number of people, maybe certain audio configurations that you want to go with, specific type of mic options, soundbar qualities, a lot of things that can be factored in. So it's not as cut and dry as picking a desk phone. It's got a little bit more detail to it. So, we could always make sure to design things or put something together. But yeah, there's no limits on the Yealink brand and Teams configuration between audio and video conferencing. There's plenty of room to scale and, kind of redesign the office space.
Thanks for that, Joe. And what I've been surprised in the past 2 years, what we've really seen an uptick in, are people using the Teams meeting room device for one, large conference rooms, as Joe mentioned, training rooms, whatever. Two, construction sites. So for a construction trailer, and putting in the video board near where the general contractor, the GC, sits, a few microphones along the construction trailer, which is like a big, long, semi trailer, so that all of the other people in the room can then sit anywhere in the room and they can talk about a construction site, be it electricity, water, construction issues, when they come out and get permits and this and that. So we've actually sold much more into the construction space than I ever expected, and it's a really good fit because you can get those mics close to the people that are talking. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense in conference rooms and training rooms in a building, but if you've ever done construction sites, and I ran IT forever, and I would always be, office moves and data center build outs, and been in a trailer more than once with a hard hat. It sounds, when I first heard it would be a good fit, I was like, oh my God, this would be great. So it's kind of interesting how we can be creative with these solutions and help quite a few industries. Steve asked a question. Lindsay, do you port over entire DID blocks, or do you go about getting new extensions for new employees? How do we go about that?
So it's really up to each organization. If you have the DID blocks, you might as well keep them. It typically won't affect the number porting process. But if everything is extension based right now, we typically only just move over those main numbers and then assign the extensions within the Teams admin center. So great questions. Creating the new extensions for new employees is all done through the admin center as well. So you have a centralized place, not only for your Microsoft 365 subscription, but everything in regards to the voice configuration and setup is done in the admin portal as well.
And I'm answering this too, yeah. So you can port the DIDs, like Lynn said, all at once or individually or in groups. And then extensions, you can use the same extensions, create new ones. If you've always been jonesing to create new extensions, you've always had, like, let's say 3-digit ones, and now you want 4-digit ones that match the last 4 of the DID, whatever it is, it's really flexible. And one thing to note about the Teams phone system, for those of us that have been doing it for a long time, it's a paradigm shift, a complete paradigm shift in doing phone system stuff. It's just so much more flexible. And the old days of getting a port for a number and an extension for a number and a DID for a number and wearing them all together so that way the port and the extension of the DID match each other, because you don't want a 4-digit extension being different than the last 4 of a DID, and you just have to manually set all that stuff. Just so much easier now. So yeah, we can do things in whatever works best for you and your environment. want. Lindsay, let me see. Bill asks about phones for like lunchrooms and things like that. So I think this is probably a common area phone topic. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, and was this specific to devices or licensing?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Perfect. So Joe can touch on some devices that we've used previously that work really great in common spaces. So examples of those spaces are break rooms, lobby phones, lunch rooms. As far as the licensing goes, as I mentioned previously, a lot of the Teams voice licensing is user-based, but when you have devices that act independently, there's separate licensing. So there's actually a license called Common Area Phone. So we license the device with that because it doesn't need a full M365 license. And then we would attach a calling plan to that. Joe, do you want to share the different types of common area phones that you've seen successful with other customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the Yealink side of things, I would strictly focus on the MP54 really for that aspect. Now, the thing to note is all of the models on the MP line really offer that hot desking. You know, that can also be another way of doing it, like a hot desking kind of setup where you're enabling the phone to have a log in, log out type of setup. So that way, you know, if you primarily in one space, you know, during your week, but you have to move around, or if it's a shared space, the hot desking feature or common area license, like you mentioned, Lindsay, would probably make the most sense. But if I was to pick one, it would definitely be the MP54. But really, you've got that ability on all of the MP line phones.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I think we've hit the end of our questions. I'm going through the list here. If we missed anything, or if you have any more questions, please put them in chat. And we can, of course, continue these conversations one-on-one afterwards. So don't hesitate to contact us. And then also, if you want to just, you know, put your feedback in here in question or chat, let us know how this Q&A format works. We're starting to do these Ask Me Anything sessions, and we really want to make sure they're tailored for you, for the audience. And we want to, you know, make sure this is was beneficial for you and for your time. So please give us your feedback on that. And then if I'm not seeing any other additional questions coming in, so with that, unless another question comes in, I'd like to thank Joe for joining us from 888 Voip. We've been partners for a long time, and super duper enjoy working with Joe and his team. Thanks to Austin and Lindsay for helping run this session, and to Carrie and Chuck for setting it up. Anything else, Lindsay, Austin, any last minute questions coming in your way?
I don't see any coming in. Oh, one more from Virgil. If I do not have a VoIP system installed, would I have to install VoIP system first? Wade, I don't know if you just want to touch 30 seconds real quickly on the networking side of things, but great question.
The answer for the most part is going to be no. It depends on your number of users. If you have a high number of users, hundreds in a building, you might still want to set up like a voice VLAN. We used to always do that with VoIP systems that were on premise. There is a network tool from Microsoft to assess your network for your Teams environment, but since Teams is 100% in the cloud, except for the devices you might buy to talk, there's really not much to set up, and you still can do things on a VLAN. And there are some Teams networks setup recommendations from Microsoft in those large environments. I'd say the only clients we have that have any kind of VLAN or networking setup are the ones that did have a VoIP system before, migrated to it, and just haven't changed anything, and just kept those network connections, the Cat5 cables to the phones just in that same VLAN. But for the most part, no, you just reconfigure Teams, add phone numbers to people, and they start using it and working pretty darn quickly. So I'll follow up by writing this in here, but for the most part, the answer is there's not much to do other than getting Teams configured. And with that, also, Carrie, remind me, there will be a replay of this and a link for this. So like a typical webinar, we'll have the information for this afterwards, so you can view it afterwards. And, oh, one more question. Oh, yeah, Todd mentioned we went from PBX straight to VoIP. So if you went PBX straight to VoIP, you probably didn't have a voice VLAN. You might have, but probably not. And we don't see very many people doing voice VLAN networking on their internal switches much anymore, especially with so many people working from home in a hybrid environment. It's just a different world from years ago. Anything else, Lindsay or Austin, that's coming your way?
I don't see anything else. So we really appreciate everyone's time today. Again, we'll be sending up a follow-up and looking forward to having more conversations with you and your teams around Teams Voice.
Agreed. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe out there.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.